Houston Real Estate Radio.
Welcome to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and we are broadcasting on AM700 KSEV, the voice of Texas, and we're your voice for Texas real estate news and information you can use. We're so excited today to have Congressman Ted Poe joining us. We've got a great show lined up for you. I'm going to be talking with Congressman Poe, and then later in the show, the Executive Director for the Texas Association of Home Builders, Scott Norman. So we have lots of national and state housing information to share with you throughout today's show. If you have a question, you can always call us, 281-882-8088, and we'll be happy to answer your real estate questions on the air. You can also tweet us your questions via Twitter using hashtag HRER. You can find links to programs and guests we have on the show by visiting us online at rrea.com/radio. So I have Jack Haymes. He is a realtor with Register Real Estate Advisors, and he's joining us in the studio today, and he brings you the Green Minute every Sunday. So whether you're a homeowner or renting a home, the Green Minute tips offer you some money-saving ideas. And on the line, we have our 2nd District of Texas, U.S. Congressman Ted Poe, and he's a leading advocate in Washington for limited government, free markets, low taxes, and individual liberty. Prior to serving in Congress, Ted Poe served for 22 years as a criminal court judge right here in Houston, where he received attention from the national media for being tough on criminals. Before that, he served for 8 years in the Harris County District Attorney's Office, right here where we are in Spring, Texas. We're in Harris County, where he became the chief felony prosecutor and never lost a jury. That's very impressive.
Yes, it is.
So
we need him back.
Welcome to the show. We know you're a strong constitutionalist, and we're so happy that you've made time today to join us on Houston Real Estate Radio.
Well, it's good to talk to you, Shannon and Jack.
Well, let's get started with some questions about the housing market, because we want your perspective. I mean, obviously you get a national view and a local view, so we'd like to hear your opinion. You know, here in Spring, Texas, we're in your district, and being constituents, we want to hear your views on our local housing market and how we're faring against the national market.
Texas is really taking the lead in economic development and recovery in the country in many areas. There are a lot of reasons for that, but one primary reason, in my opinion, is that Texas is a good place to do business, to live. One of those reasons is because we do not have a state income tax. So as Texas improves, the nation will improve. Other parts of the country are not doing so well. They had a lot of problems with lending practices and foreclosures, and they're not recovering near as well as Texas. Texas is doing a whole lot better than most cities because of a lot of reasons. The housing market, it's a good place for people to buy now, and sellers are doing well as well. But the housing development, as y'all know, how we do in building homes and selling those homes is the strongest indicator on as to a national recovery in other areas. And so it's improving. It's doing better in Texas than any place. And Houston is really the best place in the state.
Yeah, I think Houston's the best place in the country. We love it here.
We do too.
You know, having a strong housing market has been very good for us as a real estate company. But how do you think that what do you think that's going on here in Houston could be applied at the national level? I mean, we're coming out of the recession so much faster. Are there things that we're doing here in the Houston area or in Texas that could be applied at the national level to help with the national recovery?
One thing that's occurring here is, first, the problem wasn't near as bad as in other parts, but people are moving to Texas. Because they are moving to Texas, we have more development. Unlike other states where they're leaving, they're fleeing the Northeast and they're fleeing California. So that has a lot to do with the housing market and the building market. But also, lenders in Texas and Houston, and this is my opinion, do a better job of making sure that when they lend money, the person that they're lending money to is able to make those payments. So they don't get stuck with a home that is foreclosed on because the lending practices of local folks they're doing much better job really than they have done nationally. So making sure that people, when they buy a home, they know that they can afford the home they're buying, living within their means, things that families and businesses need to do, and primarily most do, which the federal government doesn't do, live within its means. But so the lending practices have a lot to do with it, and it's affordability. Home sales, I mean, you can buy a home in the Houston, Harris County area for an affordable price. You go somewhere else, it's 2 or 3 times that price.
Sure.
Other parts of the country. So those are a couple of factors.
It seems like politicians in Washington add a lot of rules, and they don't ever take any away. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree with that. It's the regulators. That's the word that brings fear and trepidation into the hearts and souls of people who are in the business community. Well, and they're in everything. And the cost of regulations doesn't improve in some cases, doesn't improve the quality of the house or lending practices. It just costs a lot of money.
Right.
And that is I hear a lot of that from business community across the board. The regulators are out of control.
Yeah, the lending practices are really restricting the market, and obviously we need protection from predatory lenders, we want to ensure the free flow of capital and really get our housing market stimulated again nationwide. But there's got to be some kind of balance. Government interference, it could be argued, even played a role in the fall of the housing market, in the bubble. So.
Well, I agree with that totally. I mean, we got into this trouble because one of the reasons was years ago the federal government was, let's use the word encouraging, lending to people who they couldn't pay back the mortgage, and it was under the assumption that the economy would grow and their house would be worth more and they would be able to pay it back. None of that happened, and therefore we had the housing bust. But the government got involved in my opinion, an encouraging, really improper lending practices. And so what happens, the government now, Congress, overreacted and made it difficult to get capital, to get credit. And so the government has restricted capital, tying up money, and makes it more difficult now in 2012 to buy a house.
Yeah. You want to weigh in on that, Jack?
Well, the only thing I have to say about it is I noticed in Florida and in Arizona, the no-doc loans. Mm-hmm. This just killed everybody in those areas, and you can see where they are and where we are. And,
big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah, I wish there could be a balance between the regulation, though, and the policies, and get everything kind of equaled out. And some economists say that it will all kind of it will work itself out. Do you see any policies in the works that can help with what's going on in the housing market now as we come out of the recession?
Many members of Congress, I don't know how many, but many of us feel like, of course, the federal government overreacted with some legislation, and we need to swing the pendulum back to an even balance, like you said, Shannon, on some things. The Dodd-Frank is one of those things that affect a lot of people in the United States, and there's talk now just repealing Dodd-Frank and coming up with some better solutions. But the regulations are a problem. Government interference in the free market really doesn't solve problems. Sometimes it creates more problems than it solves. And I agree, we need to fix that problem and get the government only where it should be and not overextend itself.
Right. We've only got about a minute left in the segment. What do you think about, right now homeowners can deduct take the tax deduction and for their property taxes and also the mortgage interest deduction. Do you think that those are going to stay protected? Do you see anything in the works to get rid of those?
The tax structure in this country is a mess. It needs to be restructured, and Of course, I think we ought to go to the fair tax, but if we're talking
Amen.
about dealing with the income tax code, two things that I think the sense of Congress is, no matter what we do, we are not going to do away with the deductions for home ownership, mortgage deduction. That's going to stay, and charitable deductions as well. I think those two things are going to stay for a lot of important reasons. People talking about getting rid of those, that isn't going to happen. We're going to keep those.
Well, that is good to hear, because we've definitely had some homeowners who are worrying about that, especially as election season comes up. So that's good to hear. We are going to wrap up this section, but we'll be back in just a few minutes to talk more with the Congressman right after this commercial break.